A figure goes through tall glass doors in the bright center of a city where power and money dictate fate.com, but with a weight that few could see. Even though he was wearing a fitted suit and seemed confident, every step echoedeth a quiet strain of unseen walls and unspoken distrust in the gazetty judge before they look. This is a story about hidden discrimination that is told in whispers, that is a way to keep people out of a system that was created to do so. Behind polished marble and carefully chosen smiles of war brews. One that will show how deep the roots of injustice go when billions are at stake. As the stakes get higher, what happens when the person who is thrown away possesses the secret to bringing down an empire? Stay with us, Toto, out about a path of strength and acceptance. If you like stories that show how power works, and if you agree, hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Where are you seeing this from? Your voice is a part of this tale. Celeste Warren stopped in front of the huge revolving doors of Argent National's main branch, and took a deep breath. The cold December air stung her nose and lungs, waking her up and making her alert. She straightened out her tailored black suit with a practiced move, making the fabric look immaculate. A light gray pinstripe hitching the light of the frigid winter. She looked at her watch. 9:27 a.m. She wasily, just like she wanted. Today had to go flawlessly. She pushed past the shiny doors and into the lobby with marble floors, and it was like getting onto a freezing stage where the spotlight was bright and intense. The bank was a monument to itself. Floor to ceiling, glass that let in a harsh morning light, dazzling white pillars, and a huge chandelier that hung like a frozen waterfall over the quiet space of glass tables and leather sofas. It was meant to make visitors feel small before they even said anything. But Celeste didn't stop. She let her heels make a sharp sound when they hit the ground. She walked across the marble in a slow, steady beat, gripping her slender leather laptop bag against her hip like armor. Her expression was calm and controlled. She knew she was supposed to be here. She had worked longer hours and fought harder to get what she wanted. She had to prove herself 10 times to get this meeting. $3 billion wasn't just a number, it was the future of her firm, the livelihood of her workforce, and a commitment she meant to uphold. She got to their huge reception desk with a young white woman sitting there typing on her keyboard. The receptionist didn't even look up at Celeste. Instead, her eyes brightened up as soon as a white man in a tan cashmere coat walked in behind her. A coat came in after her. "Good morning, Mr. Daniels. Wonderful to see you right this way," she said in a high-pitched voice. She was virtually chirping when she stood up to greet him. Celeste's jaw tightened. She waited a courteous moment and then cleared her throat. "Sorry, I'm here for my 9:30 with Mr. Kane," the receptionist said. Finally, everyone paid attention to her. The smile freezing, gaze wandering over Celeste's finely made outfit. A clean hairdo tied tightly to her head and light makeup. The inspection was quick, but complete. Then the fake smile came back. "Do you have an appointment?" she questioned gently, voice pitched in that too polite register that was somehow worse than being openly hostile. Celeste made sure her voice stayed calm. She answered yes, and held up her phone to display the correspondence with Everrain Executive Services. Services, he said it was true yesterday. The receptionist's mouth twitched and her eyes flipping to the phone like it was rude. She grabbed it up and looked at the screen for half a second before giving it back. "Yes, let me see." She didn't even try to type, she just pressed a few keys, then picked up the phone and turned away a little. "Hello, I have a Ms. This is Celeste Warren. She says she has a meeting with Mr. Kane. I don't see her on the list of things to do." "Yes, fine, thank you," she said though she put the receiver down slowly and carefully, then turned around and smiled like she was telling a child bad news. "I am sorry, Miss Warren. It looks like Mr. Kane is busy right now. Why don't you please sit over there while we see if he can make some time?" She pointed to a line of rough, ugly plastic. There were seats pushed up against the far wall, half hidden by a potted fig. Celeste felt like the words hit me like slaps. She glanced over at the row of white leather couches where other customers were sitting and drinking espresso and talking casually with bank workers. She took a short breath. Are you sure you're at the right branch?" the receptionist said in a low, dismissive voice. "Being helpful. This is where we do our executive services." Celeste's fingers spread out around the bag's handle. She suppressed the shaking in her throat. She gulped hard. "Yes," she said. "I'm in the right place." She went softly, her heels making no noise on the carpet as she went to the plastic chairs. She blew out a slow breath, letting it whistle between her teeth while her eyes moved around to the large lobby that surrounded her. She saw another banker, a tall blond man in a $3,000 suit. come to the edge of the room and clap an older white client on the back. Then, they shook hands firmly and led him up the stairs to the private meeting rooms. As they walked by, the receptionist smiled at them. Celeste kept an eye on them with her eyes, and her gut felt like it was tied up in a tight knot of anger and something worse, something that felt like shame. She bit down hard and rolled her lips inside, determined not to let anything show on her face. She moved a little. She sat in the chair and moved her weight about, making the edge creak. Then she froze as she saw the security guard's eyes shift away. He didn't try to hide it. He put one shoulder against the column by the door, arms crossed, looked bored but alert. She could see her eyes narrowed a little bit when she moved. Celeste made herself stay still again. She told herself why she was here. This meeting was the last chance for her company to get the biggest contract it had ever done. Landed. $3 billion in business money is about to go to Argent Nationals. Accounts. Her business would handle the transfer, charge the cost, and show once and for all they were part of this high level of finance. It was meant to be easy. She had done everything right. Why did she feel like a kid in detention, then? She heard leather squeak and turned to see another white-hay woman with a fitted houndstooth coat, sat down on the soft white sofa. A junior banker appeared with a shiny silver tray. "Miss Carlson, would you want some champagne?" he asked with a big smile. The woman chuckled gently and took the glass with accustomed ease. Celeste turned her head away before her face could show anything. Her jaw hurt from how tightly she held it tightly. She observed the slow dance in the lobby, the relaxed grins, and the quiet, secret conversations between banker and client, and the numerous levels of care that made each guest feel like they were in velvet. She felt sick to her stomach and attempted to keep herself busy by flicking hairpined my phone and read the same email thread again and over, each line getting more and more blurry, and getting sharper with each blink. Looking forward to finishing. Confirmed, 9:30. Confirmed, but not for her, it seems. She dropped the phone into her backpack. The snap of the magnetic clasp was too loud in the quiet room. She cleared her throat and brushed out her skirt. Over her knees, raised her chin. It was 9:58, 28 minutes late. That's enough. She got up. She moved carefully back to the reception counter, ignoring the screech of the plastic chair as it slid across the tile. The receptionist's head jumped up, and her eyes narrowed slightly. The heels clicked like bullets in the quiet. In an instant, Celeste felt all the eyes in the lobby turn to her. She swallowed the dryness in her mouth. "Excuse me," she replied, her voice even, but she didn't feel calm. It's been 30 minutes. I need to know if Mr. Kane is coming down," said the receptionist. The fingers stopped moving over the keyboard. This time, the smile didn't come back. She narrowed her lips, flared her nose, and let out a condescending sigh. "Miss Warren, as I told you, we're really doing our best. He has a lot to do, you'll have to wait." Celeste felt the words hit like a slap. The receptionist's voice was full of fake pity, but her eyes were hard and bold. Celeste, to push it even further, she heard someone cough behind her and the sound of someone moving in their seat, the undeniable weight of people watching, waiting to see the show. She battled the temptation to fight back. She could feel her heart was banging in her ears like a war drum. Every beat brought back memories of minutes going by. She had told her team that she would take care of this herself and close it, bargain, and that there was no need to fear. She was sitting here like she didn't even matter, like she was a problem they wanted to go away. She looked at her watch again. 10:21. She was over an hour late for the meeting she was meant to run. She was unwell. She shut her eyes and told herself not to scream. The quiet in the lobby changed just as she was ready to make herself rise up again. She felt it move through space before she ever noticed it. The receptionist quickly sat up straight and put on a big, polite smile. The guard at the door straightened up and stood up straighter. A choir came down on the lobby. As Everett Kane came out, Celeste turned her head. At the top of the big staircase, the polished wood railing shone in the bright sunshine. He went down with on purpose, taking each step like he was a king or queen visiting peasants. He was dressed in a sleek navy. He was wearing a suit, and his dark hair was slicked back nicely. Every time he moved his hand, a gold watch on his wrist flashed. She thought about her heart caught in her throat. All of it mixed up, relief, shame, anger, so tightly that she could hardly breathe. Everett got to the bottom of the steps and stopped to look around the room with a bored look on his face. He didn't care till he saw her. They got a little smaller, his mouth flattened into something that wasn't quite a smile. He didn't say anything right away. He just let the quiet happen, painfully long while everyone in the room turned to see. Then, with a lot of care, he turned his head he turned to one side and muttered, "Huh, you must be M. Warren." His voice was low and contemptuous, perfectly pitched to carry in the quiet lobby. She made herself get up and smoothed out her skirt with ash-shaking hand. "Yes, Celeste Warren. I had a 930. She couldn't keep the edge out of her voice. She couldn't get rid of it, no matter how hard she tried. Everett raised one eyebrow. He looked at her hair, then her suit, then her shoes, and then back to her eyes. He didn't care to hide their disdain. He said, "We don't usually let people just walk in for our executive services meetings." The receptionist giggled behind her palm. Celeste's mouth dropped open, and she couldn't speak. She felt like everyone was looking at her with curiosity, pity, and just in laughter. She said slowly and cautiously, "I'm not a walk-in, breaking," even though she tried her best. "We confirmed this yesterday." Everett clicked his tongue lightly and shook his head, as if he felt bad for him. "You realize how busy we are here, right? It's hard to keep track of all the requests." He said the last word like it was a bad word. Celeste felt heat wash over her face. She swallowed hard and tasted bile. "This isn't asked. It's a planned meeting. Regarding moving the company, $3 billion in money from the company. My business is in charge of the move." Everett smiled. He let out a small laugh that wasn't really nice. $3 billion. He looked around the foyer as if they wanted everyone else to enjoy how silly it was. He looked back at her, his eyes shining with something frigid and cruel. He grumbled just loud, enough for everyone to hear, that he always wanted the VIP treatment without having to do any effort. This time, the receptionist couldn't help but laugh out loud. Celeste's vision became blurry. She didn't know if it was tears or anger. Her throat hurt as if she had eaten acid. She wanted to yell, throw her suitcase at him, and go and never come back, but she couldn't get up. She felt like she was stuck to the floor and was too embarrassed to say anything. She looked at the elder man with the camel coat, looked over, smirked, and shook his head a little, as if to say, "Some people just don't know their place." Celeste clamped her mouth and pressed her lips together so firmly that they turned numb. Celeste sat down stuck on the ugly molded chair, her heart pounding in her chest as she stared at the marble floor. The pain of Feverin's words kept playing in her head over and over again. Loop. Getting VIP treatment without having to do any work. She could sense the sting of shame stuck to her skin like a rash. That wouldn't go away. There was quiet laughter and polite discussion in the foyer around. Her seemed to be louder than ever. She heard the receptionist giggle again, a piercing sound that cut through her. She focused and tightened her grip on the bag's handle until her knuckles turned white. She drew in a trembling voice. She tried to find something to settle her numbers. She pondered hard. She began to count down from 100 in her brain. Anything to keep the anger and the shame from bursting over and spilling forth in front of these folks. But the data didn't seem to help or make sense. Shell looked at the time on her phone, 10:34. More than an hour late. Her mind screamed at her to move, to get up, and to tell them to treat her like the professional she was. But she felt like her body was frozen in place, because she was afraid of what they may do if she stood up for herself. This shiny, chilly mausoleum of money and power. In the end, she couldn't handle it anymore. She stood up, her legs shaking so much that she had to hold on to the arm of the chair. She took a deep breath and then pushed her feet toward the reception counter. Her heels made a piercing sound on the floor, louder than she wanted, and the noise seemed like gunshots in the quiet room. The eyes of the receptionist flicked up, and the eyebrows arched in irritation that was hard to hide. Everett Kane was still there, looking at his phone and pretending she wasn't there, even though she was only a few feet away. She cleared her throat, but her voice shook even though she tried her best. "Mr. Kane," she started, trying to sound like she was in charge. "I need to talk to you. This isn't just a casual meeting. My company is in charge of a big corporate deposit of $3 billion. I need you to take this seriously." The words felt like they were on fire as she said them. The lobby was very quiet. The security man by the door had even turned to look at him, his eyes narrowing as he looked at her. At first, Everett didn't even look up. When he eventually did, it was with the same deliberate. He looked down on the survey again and smiled a languid, ugly smile. "Miss Warren," he said in a low, condescending voice. "Wait," I said. "You're disrupting our other clients." Celeste's grip on her bag becomes so tight that she believed the leather may split. "Disrupting? I've been waiting over an hour while you let other people go ahead of me. I need to finish a contract today. Do you know what's at risk here?" Everett let out a short, humorless laugh. He turned a little and projected. He spoke loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear. "Who is at risk?" She looked around and made a show of asking the people watching to join in on the joke. Celeste's mouth opened and closed, and words came out. She felt the tears coming on again and gulped. She spat back at them angrily. For you, for this bank, for my clients, and for me. Everett's eyes shone with something wicked and happy. Oh, it's for you, he said again with a sneer. And then he snapped his sound, broke the silence in the room. Reggie, the security man, straightened his back right away and started advancing toward them, slowly and carefully, like a predator that isn't in a hurry to grab its victim. Celeste's heart skipped a beat. She reflexively stepped back, and Everett's smile became a little bigger. This is executive services, he added in a quiet voice, but carrying. We can't have people yelling at staff. Take care of it, said Reggie. He halted next to her, towering over her small form, and his face was a mask of ma'am. He replied bluntly, I'm going to need you to come with me. Celeste shook her head. I'm not leaving, voice cracking. I have a meeting, and I'm Regisha. Hand sprang out and grabbed her upper arm, and her fingers dug in so tight that she felt bruises forming right away. She yelped in surprise and tried to break away, but he easily twisted her arm behind her back, making her. The pain rushed through her shoulder like a white-hot knife, and she screamed. The sound bounced off she heard gasps from the clients around them, but no one went to aid. The high marble walls sounded like a gunshot. Stop, I said, laughing. I don't want to, she said, as tears began to flow. Having a meeting, let me go, she yelled, but Reggie didn't let her. He started to march her toward Theodore, and her feet were struggling to keep up. Her bag hit her hip and the things were thin inside, moving around a lot. She turned around to glance back, frantic and embarrassed, seeing Everett's eyes one final time. He didn't even wave. The cold before the security door slammed shut behind her. She glimpsed a smile. As Reggie pushed her forward off the last step. The chilling rain slapped her face like needles. She lost her balance and fell hard. She slipped on the wet concrete, and her palms scraped against the pavement as she fell, hard to her knees. Her hair fell out of its bun and stuck to her moist face. She was breathing hard and sobbing. She forced herself up with arms that were shivering and damp and dirty all over. Her flesh was burning with shame. The huge glass doors behind her slid shut, taking away the warmth, light, and respect she believed she had earned. She was left outside, in the cold alone. She could still picture Everett Kane's smirk and feel Reggie's iron grip hurting her. She was cold, embarrassed, and alone. She made herself get up. She was shaky from excitement, wrath, and something like sorrow. She staggered along the pavement, not caring that people on foot gave her a wide berth or glanced at the dirt that was caking her stockings. She took her phone out of her. She fumbled with the suitcase with her numb fingers before grabbing it tightly. She called her assistant first, and it rang 5 times before going to voicemail. She kept trying, but each time she failed. Her breathing was ragged, and her vision was getting narrower and narrower. Finally, on the 4th try, her assistant said in a frantic voice, Celeste, oh my God, I just saw. Are you okay? Celeste blinked and tried not to cry. What did you see? There was a pause. It's on their feed. Her assistant murmured like someone who was terrified to be heard. The bank, they written about you. Celeste's heart froze. She took the phone away and opened the bank's website with a quivering thumb. Official account. It was pinned to the top. Argent National puts its top priority on staff safety. Today, our security crew had to kick out a person who was being rude or threatening. We will always keep our staff safe. She thought that the ground had shifted beneath her feet. A violent person was making threats. She was the one who was taken outside, shouting for fairness. It was cold and rainy, like trash. She hadn't threatened anyone, but there it was, in corporate PR parlance. It was antiseptic, with dozens of likes and empathetic comments praising the bank's commitment to its employees. Fell to her knees on the wet sidewalk, and her phone fell out of her hands. She picked it up and scrolled furiously, trying to find a way to defend herself and react. Her palm shook. Swar was so hard for her to type. But the bank's page didn't let people comment on the post. Of course not. Control Thestery, she tapped. The call button for Everett Kane's direct line. Even though she knew it rang twice before an automated voice told her the number was no longer in operation. She tried the main switchboard. A cold voice on the line told her that her number had been marked as a security risk, and that calls could not be. She made a choked cry that evolved into a snarl of anger. Shackled the customer support number 4. Her own company accounts. She was desperate to at least find out how her transfer was going. Gotta get a grip. Another automated message. We're sorry, you can't get in right now. Being put on hold for a fraud review. She felt her stomach twist into a cold, hard not fraud review. She hadn't done anything wrong. She had the documents, the contracts, and the signatures. But none of that mattered now. They had locked her out with just one click. The whole payroll for her company, the costs for the corporate transfer, and the trust of the lovers she'd been living with for years, all stuck behind the blinking error warning on her screen. She tried again and over till her battery alert came on and the red bar made fun of how powerless she was. She pressed her palm against her eyes and made herself breathe, but it came out as a ragged sob. People with umbrellas rushed past her, avoiding her like she was a crazy lady yelling at the sky. No one stopped. No one helped her. She felt like she was going to disappear, like she was losing not only the contract, but also her dignity, her reputation, and all she had worked so hard to build. Blood. It wasn't just the chilly rain that soaked her through. It was knowing that somewhere inside those shiny, they were patting themselves on the back for how well they had handled the crisis and making jokes about Thea, black woman who thought she could work with them. They had identified her as a threat, an issue that needed to be solved. And blocked. They had done it. Her phone vibrated weakly in her hand. Another message from her assistant. Her direct lines to the bank were quiet. Calls were banned or diverted to an automated system. Recordings that wouldn't let her talk to a real person. She sent email after email, some of which were professional, some of which were desperate, and some of which were angry. Each one was carefully phrased so that it didn't sound angry or unreasonable, even though she was so upset that her chest felt like it was on fire, feverish. No one answered, but she could see her own reflection in the dark glass across the room. Hair and the makeup had long ago washed off from crying and rain, and her eyes were crimson. She looked like someone she didn't know, someone who had lost control. She loathed it. She hated them for creating it. After 4 a.m., she eventually closed her eyes and went to sleep. She closed her eyes and leaned back against the couch, but sleep didn't help. She woke up with a start when the phone rang. Her phone was vibrating in her fingers, and the screen lit up with her CFO's name. For a minute, hope blossomed in her chest. Maybe it was a remedy, an apology, or a way out. She replied right away, her voice breaking. Nathan, please tell me you have news. There was a long wait on the other line, and she felt her stomach drop before he ever said anything. His voice was tight and controlled, which made it worse. Celeste, the payroll didn't clear. She squinted, trying to understand. What, the whole payroll batch for this cycle? It's frozen. The bank says it's on hold while they look into it. Celeste felt bile rise in her throat and had to swallow it. They can't just. Nathan, that's 300 people. Their kids' tuition and their mortgages. It's Christmas in 2 weeks. They can't. She stopped and put her fingers to her temple. She could hear him breathing on the other end. Ash said, I know. I've been on hold all night. I can't even reach a person. She closed her eyes so she saw sparks when she held the phone hard. Her palms were sweaty and scratched, and the phone almost fell out of her hands. She forced these slowly and carefully so she wouldn't scream. We have to tell the personnel. They need to know. Nathan's hole was rough. I'll write it down. But Celeste, they're going to freak out. Some of them are already texting me. She didn't answer. The silence went on for a long time until he finally replied he'd take care of it and disconnected up. She carefully laid the phone down on the coffee table and stared at it like a weapon that had gone off in her palm. Her head felt like it was full of cotton. The thin shield over her head made her feel numb. Her heart was racing with panic. She was still attempting to calm down when another message popped up on her screen. This time it came from her biggest investor. She noticed the name and her heart froze. She picked it up right away. I need to talk to you right away, Celeste. I'm getting calls. Someone says you're being looked into for fraud. Our compliance team is looking into it. This is really serious. Please explain now. Her eyesight was blurry. She had to put the phone down and settle herself. Palms balled her knees together to keep from throwing up. Fraud. The word felt like a brand on her skin. She tried to. She wanted to react, but her fingers were hovering above the keyboard. What could she say? She could see the dominoes dropping in real time. They would lose the whole $100 million deal if that investor walked out. Years of work gone, in just one rumor, a rumor they had generated. Argent National. She knew it. She could feel it in her bones. It was too easy and too wealthy. They didn't simply kick her out. They rendered her radioactive. She pictured a meeting in their boardroom. Everett Kane smiled over coffee as they congratulated themselves for getting rid of a problem and protecting the brand. Her phone was buzzing with emails, questions, anxieties. ultimatums, and staff-demanding answers regarding wages and clients threatening to sue if their money wasn't moved by the end of the day. She scanned through them, reading every phrase with the same dull horror. It was all her fault. But this time she wasn't crying or begging. She wasn't going to let them ruin her reputation and smile while they watched her drown. She carefully laid down her phone and took up the line. Her hands didn't shake as she dialed her lawyer's direct number. She waited for it to ring twice before he answered. Picked up, voice tense and businesslike. "Miss Warren." She didn't bother with greetings. David. There was a moment of silence, and then he let out a short breath, which sounded like papers rustling as he sat up. "Understood. Are you sure you want to do this?" She closed. The picture of Everett Kane laughing down at her when Reggie pulled her away was so bright that it hurt. She clenched her teeth till her jaw cracked. "I'm sure." She heard his chair creak. Ash leaned back and said, "Okay, then let's do it." She hung up without saying anything else. Her chest was heaving with the first meaningful air she'd gotten since being tossed into the pavement. The next 2 hours were a lot of movement and orders. He called in her senior staff and spoke in short, clipped lines that made it clear what she wanted. There was no disagreement. They rushed around, pale and quiet, but they did what she said. Her assistant cried. She carefully gave out the last binder with legal permissions, but Celeste only squeezed her shoulder once. Firm and reassuring. She had been humiliated enough. She wouldn't do it again to anyone else. Exactly at 10 a.m., David's office conference line rang in her private meeting room. She picked up the phone and put it on speaker. His voice was quiet but full of purpose. Like a war drum. Done. There on the line, Vivian Harrington herself. Celeste gulped. She sat up straight in her chair and looked around the room at her crew. Then she said into the mic with a voice that was calm, cold, and terribly courteous, "Good morning, Ms. Harrington. Think you know why I'm calling?" The line cracked, and then another voice, older, well-controlled, but with a thread of terror running through it, answered. "M. Warren." "Yes, I was told there was some miscommunication yesterday." "I'm sorry." If Celeste cut her off harshly. "Don't give me any PR. Let's not act like I don't know what happened. Your VP threw me out into the street, and your security physically attacked me. Your social media team called me a threat to staff safety. Your bank locked my company's accounts and flagged my number as a security concern." She let the quiet linger there like a dagger. Vivon cleared her throat. "I know there was a fight. That wasn't good. I'm extremely sorry. I'm sorry about that. But I don't see how this relates to your Celeste." She showed her teeth in a way that wasn't a smile. "Today, your bank was supposed to get a $3 billion corporate deposit. The documentation is on my desk, and my signature is the last thing that needs to be done." The other end went dead. Not even static. Celeste could almost hear Vivian's mouth moving silently as she thought over what she had said. She didn't give her an opportunity to get better. "I am the only person who manages that portfolio. I developed a relationship with the client from the ground up. They trust me, but not Argent National anymore. After what happened last night, I've decided not to give you the money." Someone on the other end gasped. The other end. It was muffled but impossible to hide. Vivon finally found her voice. "Ms. Warren, let's not be too quick. I'm sure we can figure it out." Celeste's fingers tapped the table once, like a gavel. "No, I don't think." Vivan's voice got lower, darker, and more threatening. "You know how it feels. See that this is happening to both of our institutions. They were the ones who were rushing, imploring, and bargaining." She took a steady breath, and let her words fall like stones into the silence. "This talk is ended. Tell your team to send any more questions to my lawyer." She hung up before I could answer. She pressed her thumb down hard on the phone and put it on the glossy conference table like she was laying it down. Put down a weapon. Her crew watched her with wide eyes, not sure if they should applaud or cry. She didn't let them do either. She stood with her shoulders squared and brushed phantom lint off her lapel as she looked around the room and said in a calm but firm voice, "Get our clients on the phone. Authority, we're moving everything to Sequoia first." Everyone gasped. Celeste's eyes widened in disbelief. Her CFO choked a little. "All of it. Flint, every money." By nightfall, the place was in a frenzy. Laptops sped open, fingers rushed across. Keyboards and phones rang off the hook. Celeste stood with her arms crossed and watched it unfold. Her palms hurt from being scraped, but they were steady. Her assistant stood next to her, talking little but fierce. "They will detest us for this." Celeste didn't take her eyes off the spreadsheet. Her crew was spooling up in real time, with green flashing transfer numbers as they finished authorizations. "They already hate us," she said quietly. "This just makes it mutual." Calls went out to the other side. Bank Sequoia first, and their senior relationship manager virtually tripped over himself to make sure they would get help right away. Priority processing. Courier sped through the paperwork and got signatures at record speed. Compliance teams were worn out, through red tape like it was tissue. By the time the sun went down behind the downtown skyline, Celeste Business had transferred $3 billion in business assets out of Argent National's accounts. Every last fragrance, she watched the figures change with bitter delight. Her workers still they worked the phones like their lives depended on it, and in many respects they did. They wouldn't miss another payroll. They wouldn't have to worry about why their family thought the company's name was suddenly toxic. She wouldn't allow them, never again. She stayed until the last transfer was confirmed, and only then did she let herself relax into her chair. She put her palms against her eyes for a long time, inhaling slowly, as fatigue washed over her like a tsunami. Letting the moment sink in, she had done it. She had not only survived their shame, but she had also turned it into a weapon that would break them. Meanwhile, in Argent National's shiny skyscraper across town, things were going crazy. Ruled. Celeste could picture it without having to be there. Everett came barking into a phone that when she answered, the bank's compliance officials were roaming the hallways with stacks of paperwork that made them fear. The CEO was dealing with calls from institutional clients, one after the other, asking why the word was getting out that Argent National had not kept up with its liquidity ratios. They had to, by law, show the bank that reserves that they no longer had. Her money had been the patch that kept them afloat, the lifeblood that kept them going, above water with the federal government. Now that patch was pulled away by her hand. Before midnight, news outlets picked up. An unnamed source, one of many who didn't like Argent's cutthroat reputation, disclosed the disastrous withdrawal, and financial reporters ate it up by daybreak. The price of Argent National stock had dropped by more than 80%. The markets reacted in a cold, ruthless way. Customers waited up at the doors of branches to get their money. The ATM network was having trouble because of the weight of frightened withdrawals. Customers shared blurry videos of huge lines on social media, which went crazy. There were lines and security guards yelling for calm. At the same time, the bank's boardroom was a graveyard of angry words and shaky hands. Regulators came into the lobby with serious faces and carried their had clipboards and legal authority and wanted to see the records, the logs, and the explanations that no one had made. Had expected they would have to. Vivian Harrington's own voice was heard on a leaked conference call, shaking as she tried to make the accident seem like a misunderstanding, but got a lot of questions about racism inside the companion investigations and bad oversight. Celeste's brows furrowed as she scrolled. There was no mention of her name. She had made sure of that. She wasn't the narrative. They failed. She carefully sipped her coffee. The burn was a pleasant shock to keep. She was awake. She hadn't slept well in days, but she didn't feel exhausted anymore. She felt wired, with a peculiar cold satisfaction that made her feel good. But it was only that all started in the afternoon. The leak started with internal memos that a member of the compliance team had had enough of concealing. Screenshots hit Twitter like bombs. Evercane's email chains that are so sure of themselves and so proud are written in plain and white for everyone to see. That we can't let just anyone inside executive services take care of it. Another, get rid of her. I don't care how. And then the one that really hurt them because it was so open about how much they hated her. These diverse hires think they are all the same. Make sure she knows she isn't. Celeste felt her lips separate. She felt her breath seize in her throat when she read it the first time. It was worse than she thought. She let herself feel the anger, the sense of justice, the sadness for who she had been as she sat in that. She read it 2 more times before closing the browser. She didn't need to see it again. The world had seen it again. She wasn't the only one who knew it anymore. Overnight, the bank's social media platforms turned into a fight. Their carefully planned postings about the community and a lot of angry remarks calling for resignations and probes hid the dedication to serve. Reparations. The PR staff tried to stop it by deleting comments and blocking off replies, but the screenshots stayed in. Customers started sharing videos from the branches with lineups out the door and security yelling commands at desperate clients. Individuals crying when they found out that their accounts were frozen for security checks that the bank had put in place and ATO stopped the flow of money. Television crews showed up outside the main branch. Customers cried that they wanted their money while cameras rolled. Celeste saw a shaky cell phone video of someone released a video of Vivian Harrington getting out of a black SUV with a drawn face and smeared makeup. She was trying to. She had to smile while reporters yelled questions about fraud, racism, and abuses of liquidity. She didn't even. They got to the door, but then they turned around and ran back inside. Everett Kane didn't show up in person at all, but he wasn't spared. By late afternoon, news of a statement from the board of directors spread. Everett Kane has been fired right away for behavior that is not acceptable at our school. Celeste read the words over and over until they made sense. They didn't say racism or violence, but they said enough to trash him and make sure no one else in the industry would touch him with a 10-foot pole. She almost smiled. Then the next day she almost grinned when she heard that no one in the industry would touch him with a 10-foot rod. Then the next news broke. She didn't even know about it until she saw the headline. Argent National Security Chief named Inaso lawsuit after a video of her being thrown out of a bar went viral. She clicked so quickly that she almost spilled her coffee. There he was, a grainy image from the lobby security camera of Reggie Mott's face as he wrenched her arm behind her back. The video had also gotten out. She saw herself screaming, with her hair flying around and her eyes wide with fear as he pushed her. She felt terrible watching it, but she didn't turn away. The article made it clear in a straightforward way that civil rights lawyers were lining up to help her. Protest groups were already getting set to march in front of the bank's offices in the city. The DA's office sent out a formal statement. They were looking into criminal charges against Reggie Mott for assault. She could see his dumb smile face. She could see how much he liked having power over her when he drove his fingers into her arm. She thought of him getting served with alcohol and maybe even get arrested in the same lobby where he used to defend like a bulldog. Celeste put her laptop down and slowly stroked her palms together, feeling the scars from when they'd hit the pavement. It had been months since the hurricane had hit Argent National. For Celeste and her staff, it had been months of non-stop rebuilding. The scars from Shay vividly remembered the day Reggie M threw her out like trash. Her scraped palms were a constant reminder of what had happened. The evenings of worry didn't go away right after. But Celeste had come out stronger, a quiet but strong force taking her business to new heights by making new partnerships with Sequoia First and other organizations that respected her honesty and vision. One clear fall morning, the receptionist at her new job called her from "There is a Mr. Kane here to see you, Ms. Warren. He says it's urgent." Celeste's heart raced, a chilly pulse rushing through her veins. Ever Kane, the man who had tried Toho, had almost ruined her career with arrogance and harshness to humiliate her. She gazed at herself in the glass of the office door and nodded. "Send him in," she said. When the door opened, she saw him walk in. The man who used to act like a king was now shuffling like Aha was sorry. His hair was messy, his suit didn't fit well, and he looked rumpled. But the face she remembered so clearly was tired and had something more on it, remorse. Ever looked like a man who'd lost all of it. He halted just inside the door, looking down and twisting his hands uncomfortably. "M. Warren," he said, his voice rough and unsure. "I know I shouldn't ask, but I'm here to say I'm sorry." Celeste crossed her arms and looked inscrutable. "Apologies don't change what happened." He nodded in agreement. "I know, and I don't expect to be forgiven soon away, or maybe even ever. But I want to make everything right if you let me." There was a long silence between them that seemed like a taut wire that was crackling. With Everett gulped hard and took a cautious step forward. "I'm willing Toto begin at the bottom. I want to learn. I want to change." Celeste's eyes harpened, weighing the man in front of her. The arrogance and disdain were gone, replaced with modesty. It was nearly real. Nearly she leaned back at her desk, thinking about everything. Could she give him a chance? Could she be the one to get him out of the mess he had made? Finally, she responded, her voice steady but forceful. "I can." He said he would give you an entry-level job, but only if you met one condition. He glanced up right away, full of optimism, flickering in his eyes. "Anything. You'll sign up for anti-bias training. Ethics. You will be thoroughly watched and have to show your commitment every day. If you don't, you're out." No. Everett nodded eagerly. "I understand. Thank you. I won't waste this chance." Celeste let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of the moment. Good, because change isn't easy. But she had to. She reached out her hand, and Ever accepted it. The hold was weak, trailed for a minute. The past seemed to fade away, leaving behind a weak possibilities. Celeste knew that this was the real win. It wasn't just the billions of dollars she got back or the empire she brought down. It was their chance to fix what hate had broken. Later, after Everett left the office, Celeste stood by the window, watching the city hum below. She thought of the trip, the suffering, the fight for respect, and the effort. The path ahead was lengthy and full with problems and delays. But for the first time in a long time, she felt hopeful. Hope that justice wasn't just about punishment, but also about growth. About making something greater out of the ashes. The sun broke through the clouds, bathing the area in a warm golden glow. Celeste moved away from the glass and became ready for whatever happened next. She knew she had already won, that the hardest battle of all is the finish. If you liked this tale, then like and subscribe to get more exciting stories. I'd love to hear what you think of stories like this. What did you think of Celeste's adventure and the turns along the way? Also let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Your opinion is very important and helps make stories for the future.